The theme for this first panel is Enhancing Aviation Networks in the Asia-Pacific region. Moderating this discussion is Naveen Rao, Principal of H4 Advisors LLC. Mr. Rao has an extensive background in the international aviation policy. His time at the Federal Aviation Administration led to assignments working with the Japanese Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, Japan Fair Trade Commission, and All Nippon Airways in Tokyo. He later served as counsel on the Subcommittee on Aviation in the U.S. House of Representatives and as Senior Regulatory Affairs Counsel at Atlas Air before starting the aviation industry consulting firm H4 Advisors. I will now turn the time over to him when he is ready to begin to introduce each panelist and begin this section of the program.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Naveen Rao. I want to add my welcome to everyone attending, and also my thanks to Chairman Shukuri and the staff of the Japan International Transport and Tourism Institute for hosting this program today. So, as you've seen, we have two panels. The first panel will be a focus on expanding the opportunities between and among Japan, the United States, and the ASEAN countries, and expanding it from the perspective of public policy, commercial considerations, and in a broader global context. The second panel, which will follow the coffee break, we're going to pivot and talk about specific challenges towards realizing them. So what the challenges are, and a discussion on how these challenges can be met. Before we begin, give you a little bit of context about this, just a context to preface both of these panels. So, international civil aviation exists in a broader context. It is, among other things, an instrument of diplomacy and soft power. It supports commerce in different forms, things like supply chains, things like multinational service firms. It supports tourism, exchange, visiting family and friends in a scale that unlike any other form of transportation. In recent years, since the last time JITTI held a symposium like this one, a number of things have happened, as we're all aware. First, we had a global pandemic. The first global pandemic of the jet age, meaning the last time we had a pandemic of this nature, there weren't things such as just-in-time supply chains. There weren't things like, the economy in the world looked very different, so we had that. Since that time, we've had an uneven recovery in markets. So we have seen in some places travel demand to levels before the pandemic, but in other parts of the world, they still remain slow for a number of reasons. The other big change and ongoing factor that's affecting commercial aviation is, of course, the war that broke out in Europe, the first major land war of its kind in nearly 80 years. So there's a lot to talk about, and today we are fortunate to have a really distinguished panel. You will see their bios in your informational materials. I was struck by many of them for various reasons. So we have Cindy Barbarin, Deputy Assistant Secretary at the U.S. DOT for Aviation and International Affairs, Mr. Tamura from the CEO of Narita International Airport, Steve Morrissey, Vice President, Regulatory Policy at United Airlines, and Mr. Koyama from Japan Airlines, Executive Vice President for Corporate Strategy. What I find interesting about each of them is their varied backgrounds. In the case of Cindy, having a distinguished practice as an attorney in private practice, having worked and lived overseas. Mr. Tamura has had a storied career at his ministry in many roles, including serving in the Japanese embassy in Washington, and Steve as an official at the U.S. DOT, and Koyama-san, a career at Japan Airlines in many capacities, including serving in the United Kingdom, leading their efforts there, and also in Japan Airlines COVID recovery efforts. So with that, we're going to begin. So Cindy just delivered a keynote, some keynote remarks. Starting with Mr. Tamura, they're going to make some brief presentations. After the presentations, we'll launch into a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Not evening, good afternoon. Well, thank you. I'd like to thank JITTI for giving me this precious opportunity. I'd like to talk about our current situation and the future our expansion project of the Narita International Airport. Well, according to the IATA, our global aviation demand is expected to double within the next 20 years. Among all regions, Asia-Pacific market is projected to experience the fastest growth, with an average annual growth rate exceeding 5%. And another aviation-related organization, Airports Council International, or ACI, predicts that despite Japan's population shrinkage, our aviation demand in the country will continue to grow. ACI forecasts that Japan will maintain a prominent global position over the next 20 to 30 years in terms of passenger numbers and the traffic volume. And interestingly, the Tokyo metropolitan area still ranks as the world's most populous urban region, larger than Delhi or Shanghai. This holds true, even though Japan's overall population is decreasing. And as you know, Tokyo is served by two major airports, Haneda and Narita. Regarding our international cargo handled in Japan, air transportation accounts for only 0.4% of the total weight. However, when measured by value, air cargo represents 25% of the total, highlighting its significance in transporting high-value goods. Among all seaports and airports in Japan, Narita Airport stands out as the largest trading hub for both imports and exports. By the way, the Narita Airport handles about 70% of the overall international air cargo. The chart on the left illustrates the monthly trends in international flight arrivals and the departures at Narita, Kansai, and Haneda airports. While international flights at Haneda have increased since the summer 2023 schedule, the airport faces capacity constraints. Consequently, recent growth in demand has been absorbed by Narita and Kansai. And considering the expected increase in demand, it is essential to enhance the airport capacity in the Tokyo metropolitan area. However, there's little room for expansion at Haneda Airport. For this reason, the Japanese government is advancing a project to construct a new runway at the Narita Airport, where expansion is still feasible. By constructing the new third runway and extending the second runway, Narita will increase annual slots from 300,000 to 500,000. Building a new runway alone is not enough. Passenger and cargo terminals must also be upgraded. Incorporating automation and labor-saving technology as possible to achieve a maximum productivity and efficiency improvements. We aim to improve railway access to ensure that travel from the airport to the center of Tokyo can be completed in approximately 30 minutes. An airport city will be developed in the surrounding areas to attract industries that are well suited to aviation. The conceptual or image of the new Narita Airport is as shown in this slide. Well, the three terminals will be are consolidated to one terminal, and the newer cargo or terminal will be constructed near the expressway, and that way the cargo terminal will be very convenient for our shippers. And also the inside the facilities, our automation will be promoted to the maximum level that will make the terminal very efficient and productive. Well, that's my presentation. Thank you very much for your listening.
So next, we're going to hear from Steve Morrissey from United Airlines.
Thank you very much, Naveen. Appreciate you being here today and all that you've done to add to this relationship over the course of many years. You're one of the true experts in international aviation in Washington. Glad to be with you today. Before I get into my presentation, I want to give a special shout out and thanks to Chairman Shikori and the JITTI team. This is an incredibly well-organized conference, down to the timing of holding it on the days of peak bloom of the cherry blossoms, one of the most difficult things to nail, and something that's talked about for months in Washington, and you nailed it. So thank you for that. The title of the symposium, Future of Aviation Connectivity, powered by Japan-US ASEAN collaboration. United, you may have heard me say before, and certainly heard others say, that we have a slogan. Our mission is to connect people and unite the world. And we take that to heart every single day. Connection is at the heart of what we do. So as I get into my presentation, I ask you to keep two phrases in mind. First is the importance of networks, the power of networks, and secondly, the importance and power of connections. Connection, I asked my colleague Ito-san for translation, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, Ito, but help me out. Connection to Nagari. Good? All right. And by the way, Ito-san and Dan Weiss, my colleagues from United Airlines here, who helped put together this presentation, including the Japanese translation. So thank you very much for that. So, importance of network, importance of connections to Nagari. And the clicker, thank you. No problem. Okay, so importance of networks. When I say the future of connectivity is now, goes back to that phrase, connecting people. It's what we do every day. United operates the largest U.S. Asia-Pacific network in the industry. I'd ask you to concentrate on some of the key numbers. 30 trans-Pacific routes, 60 trans-Pacific departures per day, 21 Asia-Pacific destinations. And in terms of Japan, 7. I'll stop a minute so folks can absorb the slide and the map. Moving to Japan, 9, 4, and 18. 9 U.S. gateways, 4 Japanese gateways, including Narita and Haneda, and up to 18 U.S. mainland flights, 15 Tokyo only. Again, pause for a second for all to take in. I was going to say enjoy, but the this is where I want to stress connectivity. Heidi and Cindy and other speakers have talked about the Indo-Pacific and ASEAN. Power of connections, power of network. United has taken a relatively unusual new step in recent weeks, announcing new destinations from Tokyo to points off of the U.S. mainland, including Philippines, Taiwan, Palau, and Mongolia. These are enabled by our unique network, our unique presence of having a Boeing 737 base, pilots and planes on Guam. And these are markets that are not served by our partner ANA either. So bringing the network and connectivity to new destinations, we're trying to drive the future, not wait for it to develop. I swear this says the same thing, just in Japanese. When it comes right down to it, I heard someone say once that without customers, there'd be no air travel, meaning that no one flies, or very few people fly for the joy of flying only. I'm sure there's some people in this room that do. People fly to get somewhere, for business, for family, for vacation, for important moments in their lives. So part of the power of the network at United, the power of connection, is to provide as many options for our customers, no matter where they are or where they're going. And so we've got what we believe is an unrivaled network serving both Tokyo, Haneda, and Tokyo, Narita. That's for those travelers connecting via downtown or destined for downtown, or connecting via ANA's impressive Haneda hub, or Narita for travelers northeast of Tokyo and for connections across the Asia Pacific. You can see on the slide, the blue dots are Tokyo Haneda destinations, black are Narita, and green are both from our U.S. gateways. I want to give a special shout out to our partnership with ANA, and I see my friend Tadashi Matsushita here today, a true leader in international airline government affairs. So good to see you, and welcome to Washington. It's one of the most consequential partnerships in international aviation, and we're so proud to be your partner. To wrap it up, this is really about preserving and driving that leadership role in the Asia Pacific. The numbers that previous speakers showed are a testament to the power of the relationship. Back to the comment about people traveling for a reason. There's a reason why the market is robust right now. It's because if the pandemic taught us one thing, it's that human connection will never be replaced by video. It's our nature to travel. And two countries of such consequence for so many reasons, U.S. and Japan, we're proving that point today. I appreciate the focus on infrastructure as well. Status quo is not acceptable in terms of developing the worldwide infrastructure for air travel. And that's not just concrete and runways, that's air traffic infrastructure as well, which is a big priority for United here in the United States and around the globe. Sustainability, environmental sustainability, whatever we call it, whether it's synthetic, whether it's sustainable, whether it's energy security, it's vitally important for the future. And then finally, we all have to be working together to ensure equitable access to airports, for airlines on behalf of our customers. And with that, after I pause for another minute, thank you very much for your attention today.
Thank you, Steve. Turn it over to Koyama-san of Japan Airlines.
Thank you for the great opportunity to present at this symposium. I'd like to introduce our effort to strengthen the JAL Group's route network. First of all, let me give you a brief introduction to JAL again. JAL was the first Japanese airline to open an international route in 1954 with the Tokyo-Honolulu-San Francisco route. As of the end of May 2024, the JAL Group operates domestic flight to 64 airports and the international flight to 386 airports, including code-share flight. Next, I will introduce a change in the business environment. In terms of passenger revenue for the full-service carriers business for the fiscal year 2025, which begins in April for Japan, a domestic flight at 105% compared to pre-COVID, while international route at 135% on the back of fire airfares. The international route business is expected to grow significantly in the future. It is also becoming increasingly important in our business strategy. In particular, the number of foreign visitors to Japan has been growing steadily since before COVID, while the Japanese population has been in period of decline after COVID. The number has been growing rapidly again, and the government has set target 60 million visitors per year to Japan by 2030, which will put Japan in the top 5 in the world. For this reason, the inbound market to Japan has become a promising growth area in the international business. We have joint business with our oneworld partners in markets around the world, including Europe and Asia. And in recent years, we have also expanded our partnership beyond oneworld carriers. Within that overall strategy, North America is our most important region on international route. We maximize our mix share by utilizing the Pacific joint business with American Airlines. In addition to code share that include non-oneworld partners. As part of the joint business, American Airlines commenced a daily flight from Haneda to New York last June. A new JAL flight from Narita to Chicago will be launched from June this year. In addition, the newest aircraft of a fleet, the Airbus A350-1000 has been deployed on the New York and Dallas route since last year, and from the upcoming 2025, we will introduce A350 to Los Angeles. It is also important to capture the growth of the Asian market as well as the point-to-point market between Japan and North America. According to one Japanese research organization, global passenger demand will grow at a compound annual growth rate of 3.4% through to 2040, with Asian expect to have the highest growth rate by region. In particular, with the growth rate of passenger demand to and from Japan has been 110% from 2017 to 2024. Demand between Asia and North America has shown growth of 119% for the same period, which offered us a great opportunity to target this demand, taking advantage of Japan's geographic location. In response to this, the JAL Group is utilizing the Haneda Airport as a hub for domestic and the international flight, and the Narita Airport as a hub for international flight connecting between North America and Asia and other destinations. We are developing a route network that takes advantage of future of each airport. With Narita as a hub, the JAL Group is also transforming our operation by offering 3 LCC brands, in addition to the existing FSC brands, in accordance with the future of each market. JETSOSA Japan, which focuses on the domestic and short-haul Asia. In the Spring Japan, which serves city in China, and JITTI. JITTI is Japan's first medium to long-haul international LCC, operating Boeing 777-8 aircraft. JITTI currently flies to 10 destinations, mainly in North America and Asia. They recently launched a new route, Narita, Houston, earlier this month, on 4th March. JITTI plans to further expand its network by introducing Boeing 77-9 from 2027. In addition to pricing, JITTI is developing demand that is different from the JAL brand by offering services which make it stand out more as an LCC, such as a full flat seat and free Wi-Fi. This will broaden the diversity of the customer base across the JAL Group as a whole, and may lead to the greater separation between FSC and LCC in the future. In this way, JAL Group is responding to the growing market of Asia and North America, not only by Japan, not only meaning to Japan business demand through the full service carriers proposition, which has been its focus, but also by expanding effort to meet inbound market, transit market, and LCC market, and use the joint business and code-share partners. Thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you, Koyama-san, and thank you everybody for sharing your perspectives of your respective organizations. So we're going to move into our discussion right now. So this discussion is going to consist of a few questions we prepared ahead of time, but also we're going to try to get to questions that we received from the audience. So we're going to try to include one of those. Thank you all for submitting those ideas. Greatly appreciated. So in my opening remarks, I talked about a few things about where we are, where the industry is, where the world is. And one thing I mentioned specifically was this idea of a uneven recovery in markets. One of the areas where we've seen that is the direct market for services between the United States and China. And in fact, I think just last Friday, Cindy's office issued what are called dormancy waivers that allow airlines to retain traffic rights that are not currently in use. So United, American, and Delta Airlines each have flights rights to serve China, but because of commercial reasons, they're just not viable at the moment. So with that backdrop in mind, I want to direct a question starting with Koyama-san and Tamura-san about how does this circumstance, this kind of uneven recovery, this weakened demand between the U.S. and China, affect the role of Japan and the airports within Japan and the airlines of Japan, these regions?
Thank you very much. I'd like to speak in Japanese. So regarding the direct flights restricted between the United States and China, so it's now down to 30% or so. That is my recognition. And So there are some flights connecting in China. It was limited, but now it's 6 times higher than before. And then also flights between United States and China, larger aircraft are also connecting in Japan. And so that means that we are seeing a higher or harder competition in Japan as well. And then also due to the Ukraine war, China has been really aggressive in terms of introducing larger aircraft for their flights as well. So aviation networks can be influenced hugely by geopolitical issues. And so I think that you're right in terms of talking about geopolitical issues as well. And then so Japan working as a hub for the global network, I think that we'd like to utilize Narita Airport for further improvements as well.
Please.
Yes. Well, there are political and economic tensions between the United States and China. Will they continue or for the foreseeable future? And well, actually, those tensions will have various impacts on the economy and politics all over the world. And well, China has developed to be a factory for the American companies and the global enterprises. And well, all those global enterprises have started reassessing their supply chains. And well, of course, we can't ignore or we will not be able to ignore the presence of China in the future. But some of the role as a global or the factory of the world will shift to the Southeast Asia or the India, and well, and maybe for some products or the components that will require the advanced technology, maybe the East Asia, including Japan, will be one of the options as a production basis. And so they are located just midway between the Asia, Southeast Asia, and North America. The role of Japan will increase in the future, especially for the civil aviation hub. And so it's very important to expand the capacity of our Japanese airports, especially in Narita, will be very important, not only for Japan, but also for the global economy, I believe.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. And Steve, as one of the recipients of a dormancy waiver, would you like to add any comments? And then I'll turn it over to Cindy as well for any thoughts.
Thank you, Naveen. And it reminds me I should start by thanking Cindy and Heidi and their teams, not just for approving the dormancy waiver. I think that's because we just made strong arguments, right? No, for their dedication to the mission. You know, they were at it through the pandemic. They remain at it today through political turmoil, and we owe them a debt of gratitude for their commitment to mission and commitment to service. This issue is a perfect example of that too. Prior to the pandemic, United was and hopes to one day again be the leading airline between the U.S. and China. For lots of well-known reasons, primarily because of the lack of access to Russian airspace, which is a geopolitical issue that has nothing to do with U.S.-China relations. Well, nothing directly to do. And because passenger demand between China and the U.S. has not recovered. We are unable to restore our schedule. It's one of the truisms that we believe that capacity follows demand, not the other way around. And until demand for air travel between the two countries recovers, we really appreciate that the U.S. government has taken a direct approach to not allow the demands of the Chinese government to increase supply beyond what demand dictates. And that's been a hard position to hold at times, but they have held it, and it's imperative to the international competitiveness of the U.S. industry. So thank you for that. The solutions are easy, and we only need to look to the recovery of the U.S.-Japan market. We need to give people, again, a reason to fly again, and they will. Capacity will follow, supply will follow demand, and we'll be ready to serve it. Until then, having, back to the power of networks, having strong networks by U.S. airlines, Japanese airlines in partnership builds a more resilient air travel structure for the entire world, and we're very fortunate to have that connection and that power of those networks.
Thank you, Steve. So actually, with a eye on our time, I'm going to actually pivot to our next question here, and this one is for Cindy. So as we all know, government policy uniquely shapes the marketplace for aviation. It's a highly regulated industry, not only from a safety standpoint, but economically. And that's especially so in the international marketplace with a variety of bilaterals and multilateral agreements. So Cindy, question for you, and I'll have others comment as well. What policy priorities does DOT seek to advance when thinking about strengthening aviation networks among Japan, the U.S., and ASEAN? And how do you measure success or the need for change?
Thank you very much. So our policy has really been in place since 1992 with the creation of our U.S. Open Skies policy. And that really allowed us to bring a balanced approach aimed at maximizing public interest and enabling a strong aviation network internationally. And so, our transition to an open skies it's been 30 years. It took us a while to get there, and now it's been in place for a good bit. And it's really represented a paradigm shift in how we viewed international air transportation, with a focus on the significant economic benefits that flow from having a wide set of stakeholders and economic sectors that are supported by the increased international air transportation and connectivity. So, we've really seen a lot of growth in the in the international aviation sector since 1992, and that is a measure of success. So measuring it is simple. It's that growth as well as the greater connectivity. We have more flights, we have more passengers, we have more destinations. And so I think that right there is a testament to the success of our 30-year and going open skies policy.
Thank you, Cindy. So those are it's a great outline of the things that DOT thinks about. So Tamura-san and Koyama-san and Steve, you all are on the other side of this. You all have, from a commercial standpoint, you advocate for your airports or your airlines to ensure that your commercial policies are consistent with public policy imperatives. What are your thoughts on one, with your respective governments in Japan and the U.S., about the policy priorities, how they're implemented, and what's that interface look like between commercial and public policy?
Well, that's a very good question. Narita Airport is owned by the Japanese government 100%. So we can't be allowed to be kind of inconsistent with the public policy. And I think well, I explained about the expansion program of the Narita Airport, but I think that will be consistent with the, the enhancement or the development of the civil aviation relationship between the United States and Japan, and also the ASEAN countries through Japan and the United States. And I think that will be consistent with the public policy once again.
Thank you. Steve, would you like to add some thoughts?
I'd be glad to go next. I have a corporate secret to share. United has a policy and regulatory agenda. And Ronce and Bob, could I ask you to close your ears for a second? No, this is not anything that's going to surprise anybody. We've got three main priorities. First is, and this is primarily a U.S. domestic priority, but it counts around the world too, is to revitalize the air traffic control system. We believe it's the most impactful thing the government can do for air travelers, operators, and communities in the policy space. So fixing air traffic control is number one. We're very, very pleased by the focus and action that's being taken on that here in the United States and around the world. The second, and I referred to this a little bit when talking about Russian airspace ban and flights to China, is international competitiveness. Things like a government favoring airlines from home countries or from like-minded countries that impact competitiveness, like airlines from India, from Hong Kong, growing service to the United States. By virtue of their continued access to Russian airspace, that's a very important issue that we take very seriously, and we're talking to our leadership about that, not just here, but around the world as well. The final bucket I would call innovation and technology, and that spans a lot of things, but it has to do with new ways of doing business, looking at the way we operate with a critical eye, make sure it's modern, make sure we're leveraging the best technology, make sure we're designing our systems for the present and the future to be as efficient as we can. And also, I would say sustainability falls into this innovation and investment bucket as well. United is in all airlines represented in this room, are very focused on investing in sustainability, both to operate more cleanly and better, but also to make sure we have certainty of fuel supply well into the future, and so we can continue to grow. So that's an outline of our policy and regulatory agenda. I'd ask you to please not talk to my competitors about that too much.
Koyama-san, would you like to add something?
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, in terms of the what is the Japanese government is really strongly promoting is increasing the numbers of inbound travelers to Japan, and with that, Tokyo as well as Kansai, these are the two areas where the foreign travelers tend to focus. So, given that context, our hope is that more and more foreign travelers will be more attracted by other cities outside of Tokyo and Kansai. And so this is the area that the Japanese government, as well as the private sectors, are cooperating together. Towards the goal of 60 million travelers or tourists, we are working hard as alongside with each other. And then just looking far out in the future, we need to look at the SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel topic. You see, this is really still something that we have a set goal of. However, this is quite an expensive option, and therefore we do have to really work towards increasing the volume of SAF, as well as just securing them and in a sustainable manner. These are the areas that we would like to work towards.
Hey, we are just keeping an eye on time here, and we're going to try to jump to one more discussion question and then maybe to one of the audience questions. So the last discussion question I'm going to ask, I'm going to actually turn back to our airline participants on this one, because this one was actually kind of interest to me personally. Going back a few years, maybe about 20, 30 years, this market looked very different. And what I mean by that is if you went to Tokyo in the mid-1990s, it looked like you could confuse it for O'Hare or Detroit, meaning that there were a lot of United Airlines aircraft and a lot of Northwest aircraft, and they were using, I think a lot of you are familiar with the idea of fifth freedom, which just means a commercial right to stop somewhere in a different country, pick up and drop off passengers, and keep going to yet another country. Since that time, things changed. Aircraft have been able to fly longer, 16, 17 hours in some cases. Alliances have formed. And so going back to something that I think, Steve, you talked about, or one of our keynotes talked about, very recently, so United obviously flies very long distance flights from Singapore on its own. It has a great partner in All Nippon Airways. But you've also, United announced some flights that are fifth freedom. So the question for you, for Koyama-san, and for you, Steve, are fifth freedoms coming back? Is this part of a larger trend, or is this, what's the outlook look like from a commercial standpoint and using alliances versus own metal versus traffic rights?
So yes. I'm not sure they ever really went away, but you know, I think it's, from United's perspective, using all the tools available to us to find customers where they are and get them where they want to go. I mentioned the unique nature of United's presence on Guam and the luxury for us of having a 737 aircraft and pilot crew base there, which allows us to come up with new and different ways to serve destinations in the region in partnership with ANA to find people where they are and get them where they want to go. And so I think that's more a function of, you know, the robust nature and the power of networks, the power of connection that I was talking about, than any new groundbreaking policy shift.
Great. Koyama-san.
Since the 1990s, there has been code shares and other alliances have really increased. Therefore, the fifth freedom has, increased back then. However, in my home carriers have been strengthened within their own country. However, recently, LCC usage has really increased quite a bit. So customers are really drawn to that. Therefore, code share partners are not the only options that the customers are offered. Therefore, as a company, we would like to strengthen this function, and we also will use the fifth freedom rights to fly out to other destinations. So these are our thoughts. Again, in other words, we are viewing this as just one of the options. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to maybe move to one of our audience submitted questions, and this relates to this idea we've all heard terms like over-tourism or revenge travel after COVID. So there's been a surge in travel in certain places. I'm going to start with Tamura-san and Cindy here. For Tamura-san, so in terms of as tourist numbers increase in Japan has been a beneficiary of a lot of the growth. What infrastructure improvements and enhancements are you planning to alleviate congestion? I know you talked a little bit about it. And then for Cindy, changes in policies between the U.S. and Japan, how might they impact the liberalization framework that you discussed in your remarks earlier?
Well, as discussed by some other panelists, there are the Japanese government are set their target of the 60 million by the 2030. And well, actually, the most exported products by Japan was automobiles last year. The value was the $120 billion dollars, and but the tourism or the consumption by the foreign visitors in Japan was actually $54 billion, and that was more than the semiconductors or the auto parts or steel or whatsoever. So the tourism has become the second largest exporting industry for Japan. And so for the moment, the Japanese government doesn't have the option for restricting the number of the tourists. But we can see the summer cities or local communities where the there's the overcrowded situation, and I think the summer communities can take measures for mitigating the over tourism by introducing the concept of the tourism capacity or tourism carrying capacity, and also the utilizing the land use restrictions or whatever. And well, actually, the airports have very little things to do or for over tourism, but we can improve the situation by or promoting the automation in the boarding processes or the immigration procedures, or the also we can enhance the capacity of a baggage handling by introducing the automated baggage handling system, and also maybe we are facing the labor shortage. So now in the ground handling and security checks or whatsoever. So we have to improve the working environment for our workers at the airport, and also we promote the automation and the labor saving in a very accelerated manner. That's for shortage, and for long term, we're going to expand your capacity.
Great news. Cindy, what about your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. I see we're running low on time, but I would not underestimate all of the work that you're doing at the airports and the importance of the infrastructure changes you're making for seamless flows of tourist traffic, because that's obviously something that you're working on and doing a great job at. And it's obvious demand's increasing, and I think our perspective is we want the carriers to be able to have the flexibility to adjust their networks, their schedules to meet the demands. It's critical that the aviation relationships that we have facilitate that flexibility, and that's why we're working so hard to remove the remaining restrictions on our U.S.-Japan aviation relationship. That's really our focus. And Haneda is the largest U.S. gateway in Japan, and we need to remove those restrictions. And so we look forward to continuing those conversations, and we look forward to opening that slot regime, and we really appreciate our partnership with JCAB on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And in just the remaining few seconds we have, just to quickly summarize, we heard a lot of great things. I think we heard, in the case of uneven demand, uneven recovery of demand presents an opportunity for Japan in that as the market evolves and shifts, it's just ideally located to continue to serve as a pivot point, and it's also, of course, a great destination in and of itself, and origin and destination. We also learned that there are a number of challenges, for example, policy considerations, including the public interest and in addressing issues like SAF supply. And with that, we can continue this discussion during the coffee break. I want to thank our panelists again for kindly taking their time to share their thoughts with us, and I will turn it over to Susanna to give us next steps.